Okay, hello Internet. This is Ben again, of course. I don't like how that rhymes. That's like that song, something about Ben again. Anyway, so let's call this a video related to the game Poppy Pets. I mean, I seem to be recording these because, and it is because I'm going to talk about how I've implemented some things both in SciPets and in Poppy Pets using just a little technique. So I'm not going to show you any code of that today. I'm just going to show you how you can quickly do like a small amount of procedural generation. So if you've heard of like procedurally generated stuff, I mean things like the entire world of Minecraft or No Man's Sky, right? They make a whole crazy universe or whatever. Terraria, like all those kinds of things. That's where I think procedural generation is usually thought of as being used, right? To generate these huge, crazy, sprawling worlds. And I've done some, I mean, I don't want to say huge, crazy, sprawling worlds, but I've done some things like that before. I've used procedural generation to create like the sector and the planets within Mysterious Space. And I made a little game for it was some kind of game jam, I don't remember. And anyway, it was like in a week or a weekend or something, and I used procedural generation to generate a huge, crazy galaxy. And I kind of laughed because I mean, I hear that No Man's Sky has gotten better since, but originally people were like, oh yeah, sure, you've got bajillions and bajillions of planets, but your game is boring as whatever. And so it was kind of amusing for myself to just be able to trivially, in a short amount of time, it's easy to make a universe of infinite boring possibilities, right? That's a very easy task with procedural generation. So I think that's how procedural generation is usually thought of, generating huge, crazy worlds. But you can also use it in crazy small scales, in super simple ways, to just kind of create data that you don't even need to save, is how I've tended to use it. So let me talk about an example, and let me show you an example here. So this is just a random website that I found, and I looked for like PHP online. Yeah, it even remembers. Yeah, that's fine, we can leave. And it was just one of the first ones I happened to find. I actually checked out this one as well, but for the particular thing I'm going to show you, you need a very recent version of PHP for reasons which I'll get into. But you can use these same techniques in like many languages, different versions of PHP, whatever. So how I used it in SciPets was that we had a tower monkey, and there were like a bunch of names that you could have. So I'll just make up some names. I'm trying to remember names that we had in that game, but whatever, I'll just make some up. I know Paperclip was one, just a silly one, but most of them were weird names like Millicent, like old school, because I found a lot of the names on some site that I say old school, we're talking like medieval times, right? Like it was why can't I think of the word now? Censuses and things taken in medieval times in Europe and stuff, and so people have like gone through these to find names and try to determine what were popular names in whatever 1500, I don't know. So it was, and so I pulled a bunch of names out of there. So I don't know, let's just make a bunch of names. I'll do Lilu, that's from The Fifth Element. I'll do I don't know, we'll do Luke as in Skywalker. I don't know what else we want to have. Whatever, I'll do Mia the cat, and why not? I'll do my name. And when I tend to do ABC names, like here, I tend to do, these are like some friends from elementary school, but that's like a common, like what's the example that was just like Alice and Bob, right? Those are, if you see a lot of, I feel like it comes up in computer science, but it must be in other fields as well, to be like Alice wants to send Bob a message, and so then you can use A and B throughout the examples. So whatever, but I do Abby and Ben, and then if I need a C, I do Carly, but whatever. So in SciPets, there was a tower monkey that you had in your alchemy tower. And for whatever reason, when I implemented it, I didn't want to, I wanted a name for this monkey. I just was like, oh, it would be funny to have like a monkey in there, like a flying monkey, like in, now I can't think of anything. I want to say Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That is the wrong fantasy. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. You know what I'm talking about. Why can't I think of the name? This is driving me crazy because I'm trying to talk at the same time. I can't think. Not Alice in Wonderland. Thank you, brain. You're so useless. Anyway, so flying monkey in a tower. And I wanted it to have a name, but for whatever reason, I don't remember, I didn't want to store the name in the database. I didn't want to make a new field and like generate a name and, once you got the add-on and keep it there and then recall it and whatever. So I was like, well, here's the thing we could do instead. we could just randomly generate it every time. And of course, if you've heard about procedural generation, you know you'll have like seeds for the world, right? If you always use the number 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll always get the exact same world if you use the same number, because computer random numbers aren't really random, right? So you can do this. So like, let's give an example. If I can make a number, let's make a random number from 1 to 10, right? And if I execute this, I'm going to get a different random number every time. 9, 4, 6, 5, right? We got going on. Let me see if I can zoom in to get, yeah, that's probably a little better. Okay, different numbers, right? Oh, that got 9 several times, 10 several times in a row. But you can seed them. So you can do, okay, I'm going to seed the random number, let's say with 1, 2, 3, 4, and now every single time I'm going to get the same number, because that's how random number generators work. So you could also, and let's use this example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are better ways to do this, but let's get a random number from 0 to 7, because that'll be the index, and we'll do instead the name indexed in that way. And now we're always going to get Carly every single time, no matter how many times, right? If we don't seed our random number for our random number generation world, we're going to get different names. But if we use the same seed, then we get the same thing. And there's a better way to do this. Like I was mentioning, this is kind of not a great way, because now if I increase the length here, I would have to remember what to update this code to account for the changed length. So you can use instead, it's called ArrayRand, I believe. I hope that I've done the right name. Yeah, and ArrayRand looks at an array and picks a random key. This array has implicit keys of 0, 1, etc. If you don't give keys, it just assumes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. ArrayRand picks out a random key, and then you say, great, find the names with that key. So that syntax looks a little funny where you're like, names, ArrayRand, names. It's a little cumbersome. Other languages, honestly, would let you do nicer constructions, but PHP is a little old school in ways. So anyway, this is what I did for the tower monkey. I was like, I always want it to be named the same thing. And what did I use as the world seed? I tended to use either like the player's username or their ID number in the database, or I guess I wouldn't use their email address because that could change. ID would be the most obvious pick because that's not going to change. So if you have if your user ID number 1, then your monkey name is always going to be Abby in this case. But if your username number 2, it's always going to be Paperclip. And there will be repeats, of course. We only have so many of these, but it's random. The disadvantage of this technique is that if you change any conditions, and this happened in SciPets, if you change any of the conditions, then everything gets crazy changed. So for example, we're always getting Lilu here, whatever, and it's always, right, this is a condition we know we want to change. User ID number 5 gets Luke, user ID number 4 gets Lilu, great. But another way it can change is if you add more names to the game, and that was something I did, because what this name array was actually being used for were pet names. So when you saw like pets in a pet shelter, they would get a random name, it pulled from this list. And when I was going to do the monkey, I was like, I'll just pull from the same list. I already have a list of names. Why would I go out and make a new list of names? Don't be silly. So later on, forgetting about the tower monkey, I decided to add more names for pets. And so, I don't know, let's say Apple. And now when you run it, you're going to get a different name because you've changed the parameters. And if you think about it, right, it can't know to pick the same thing. The random number seed hasn't changed. And let's go back to our original thing. We had Lilu, right? Because it can't know that. All it knows is it needs to somehow randomly pick one of these names from a list with equal probability, regardless of whatever. It has no notion of this is an existing user or anything like that. So when I went and changed the list of names available to the game, everyone's monkey names changed, and everyone was really annoyed. And it was a funny thing, I didn't even think about it. People like actually cared about the name of their silly tower monkey. Like it was just kind of this silly thing I threw in. Didn't expect anyone to really care. I think you could have it go out. You could say, "Go get me stuff," and like half the time it would bring you back an item from your own house. And it was dumb. It was like this intentionally stupid thing. But people really latched onto the name. So that is a disadvantage of this method, right? An advantage is you don't have to store anything. It's really fast. Like, I mean, the performance isn't, I don't know. I don't think that's really a concern here. Like, storing the name in the database and going and fetching it really isn't going to take time. I'm fetching tons of stuff from the database anyway. I could fetch a monkey name. But anyway, this is a very simple example of how you could use procedural generation on a small scale, right, to like generate a monkey name. How I'm using it, and everything in between, right? So this is the smallest scale. The largest scale would be, let's generate a whole Minecraft world or a whole No Man's Sky universe or my like girl fishing in space game, right? That whole huge, even bigger universe, right? And that game's not even good, but I'll link to it if you want to check it out. It's not good. I made it in like a few days. And everything in between is what I was saying, right? You can do something super small, something big, and you can do things in between. So what I have done for to get a little more advanced, and let's do an example of this. So let's say there's a traitor with a D, not like a traitor who betrays you, but a traitor who exchanges goods with you, right? In poppy seed pets, and every day he has different offers for different people, and the way you could do this is, so let's just make a simple array of like what he's asking for. So let's say he things he can asks for, and let's say he might say, I don't know, sometimes we have reds and oranges as fruits instead of apples and oranges. Let's say red, orange, maybe he wants fish, maybe he wants fluff. And then here's what he might offer. He might offer quintessence is a magical element. It's straight ripped out of the World of Darkness games, mage and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, that's what they call the magic stuff. I just didn't want to do Gossamer again. That's what I called it in Side Pets. I was like, let's try and pick something different. But anyway, whatever. That's our magical thing. Maybe he gives you gold ore. Maybe he gives you there's that like cooking buddy or whatever item, or maybe he gives you like a cool sword I haven't made yet. Let's just make something up. So what we would do is let's just make a thing. Let's say the user ID is 5. And today, we can do this. Let's get a date time. And we'll just demonstrate this. So let's say today, we can format that as year, month, day. And let's see what the year, month, day is here. 2019, 7/25. That is accurate. So these are the things that we're going to use as the seed. Because again, what I wanted in that game is I wanted it to be a different trade per person per day. So if we just use the day part, or we just turn this into something that looks like a number. Now this is a number. And I did something a little trickier. I didn't want to, here's the naive way you could do this. You could say, okay, then our seed is the user ID plus the day we'll format it as YMD. And I don't know, let's be a little explicit. That is technically a string, but we want to interpret it as an integer. So we could mtsrand, again, here's our magic seed. Let's just echo that out as well. Let's see what that seed is. So I don't actually do it this simply in, right, so we had user ID 5, we know it's the 25th, so we're getting a 30 here. And we can see that. The reason I don't actually do a straight addition like that is that means that every user, like user ID 6, is going to have the same exchanges as user ID 5, but on the previous day. Like it adds an interesting cycle that's almost predictable, and I didn't want it to be predictable in the game. A good way to make things unpredictable, first of all, you can scramble things around, is to involve primes. If you involve prime numbers, those are usually very difficult for someone to entangle, so you do something like, yeah, we're going to multiply this by like, I don't know, a prime off the top of my head, let's say 13. I probably use something bigger, and do the year times 7 or whatever it is. So you mix things together in a way that becomes difficult for someone to predict, maybe take a modulo somewhere. I don't remember the exact formula I used, but just what you're trying to avoid is an obvious predictable sequence for people where it's like, oh, the very next user has the same things as the person before or whatever. So shake things up a little bit. But for the purposes of this example, we'll leave it like this. Add the year, month, day, seed a random number. And then all you have to do, right, is you say, okay, now I want some number of trades. So here are our trades. We'll make a new array and we'll say, let's just say that everyone gets 3 or something. So I is 3, I plus plus. And then we'll say the trades are asking for, and we'll just, asking for, and we'll assign a random one of these. So asks for array rand asks for, oops, and what do they offer? And offering offers array rand offers. Oops. And then we can loop over our thing. So for each trades is trade, we'll say I will trade, or I will give you trade offering for trade asking for. And now we should have, and let's put a little new line in here so that we see these things nicely. Oh my gosh, I've done something horrible. I will give you offering, asking for. Did I do something wrong here? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. We have to append it to the array. I missed the whole thing. All right, I will give you gold R for red. I will give you cool sword for fish, right? It's the same every single time. But if we add a day, and we can do that, so we can, let's cheat and say it's actually, and the way you do this, you say modify, let's say it's tomorrow, plus 1 day, and let's see what it would look like tomorrow. I'll give you a cool sword for a red, a quintessence for a fluff, a cool sword for an orange, versus whatever it was before. Oops, I hit Control S because habits. Gold ore for red, cool sword for fish, right. So this is how this is how you can do something a little different. And again, this is like, oh, we don't want to store this in the database necessarily. We don't know when people are going to come by. I don't want to like every single day have to run through every single user and generate a new list of trades and save that in the database in order to recall. It's like whatever. At the time someone asks, it's very quick to do this. And my logic in Poppy Seed Pets is a little more complicated. I do some things to make sure that the same trade won't come up twice. I want to make sure that there's a variety of things, and also that they're asking for a variety of things. So in fact, the same thing they're asking for, he won't ask for the same thing twice and offer 2 different rewards. I wanted to make sure it was, again, a variety. But whatever, this is, computers can count very quick. You might be like, isn't that a little wasteful to do that every single time? It's like, no, dude, you count into 10, putting things in an array, do it 3 times, you're done. Like, it takes microseconds. It's faster than you can think about starting to blink. Like, computers can do this stuff very quick. I mean, you wouldn't want to generate an entire Minecraft world, you know, like every frame of rendering or something ridiculous like that, right? If you're truly generating a huge amount of data, yes, you save it. But this is a technique, a way to use procedural generation to do some interesting things. And right, this is just one example, right? So we had, oh, sure, generate a name at random, pretty basic. And they're like, ooh, I want a different trade offer every day. Okay, use the day as a seed, you know, use the user ID and get that incorporated as well. And you know, if you wanted every single person to have the same experience from your marketplace, then you would just do the date and not involve the user's ID number at all. So you have a lot of options here. It's just an interesting technique to think about using. And again, this was a PHP example. If you know any kind of programming, this should hopefully be pretty easy to translate into whatever language you know best. And if you don't know any programming, maybe it's just interesting to see how games might be working, because, right, again, it doesn't have to be used to generate a whole world. You can do all kinds of interesting little sneaky things like this, and maybe there's games that you've even played where you're like, oh, I wonder if that's what they did. I mean, it's just an interesting insight. It's really weird taking advantage of things like random numbers. Oh, they're not actually random, right? I mean, we all kind of know this. You've probably heard about things like that, but yeah, an interesting application. So, I don't know. I just thought maybe that'd be interesting. So there you go. I'm gonna, shut up before these things get too long. As always, what am I at now? 18 minutes. It's like the shortest one ever. So I'll call that a success. As always, please let me know if this sort of thing is interesting or not. I find this stuff fascinating, and I like talking about it, clearly. So I'm happy to talk about these and other things if you're interested. So let me know. Thanks again, and goodbye.